Transport Minister Fikile Mbalula says government took an economic decision when it allowed taxi operators to operate, at full capacity to help save an industry critical to our economy. The minister was briefing the media on the transport regulations under the new amended laws. But Labour Federation COSATU does not agree with this decision and has threatened to embark on a mass action, slamming the amended regulations as a joke. Let's discuss this further and rope in the first Deputy President of the organization, that's Mike Shingange. Mike, thanks very much for your time. Welcome to the AM report. Perhaps let's start with a point of clarity. What exactly is COSATU's gripe with the regulations in their current form?
Good morning, Ayanda. Please, could you repeat your question?
It's a point of clarity as a start, perhaps. So what exactly is COSATU pushing against insofar as these regulations are concerned?
Well, thank you very much. Our issue is that the regulations has been announced recently by the President and also the Minister goes against exactly the campaign by the nation to try and reduce the spread of this coronavirus as far as the crowded areas is concerned. You will know that in the beginning of the lockdown, particularly at level 5 and level 4, we have developed what we call occupational health and safety protocols, including the workplace plans that are supposed to be followed by all the employers when they admit the workers to go back to work. The taxi industry never followed such regulations, but even if they were to be followed in each and every workplace where in the social distancing there's a limited number of people coming to work, there's all those infection control protocols. The manner in which the taxi industry has ignored such, and including the issue of the 100% capacity, defeats all the whole purpose of trying to flatten the curve. So that's what we are against. We think that at a level where the government was still trying to enforce 50% or 70%, we should have perfected the compliance of those rules and making sure that the taxi industry complies with those regulations.
And my understanding, of course, is that the threat for strike action is not immediate. In fact, the organization has applied for a Section 77 with NEDLAC for consultations to take place, essentially. What are you hoping will come out of that?
Indeed, we have not issued a Section 77 notice to strike. We have issued a Section 77 to NEDLAC in order to get an audience of the Presidency and the Minister of Transport so that we can have a discussions that is aimed at finding solutions that is going to combine the efforts of South Africans to flatten the curve, including the other areas that we think we can make proposal. Because our issue here is that the workers that are using this, 70% of the workers in this country are using the taxi industries to work. But the things that they take this virus from the public transportation, take it to the workplace and take it to their families. Even if you comply at your home, even if you comply at your workplace. But the fact that there's this lackluster in the disregards of the role of the rule in the taxi industries, it doesn't achieve the purpose. So that we are hoping to have a discussions. We want to say to the government, the President in particular, we are not happy. We don't think that the issue of chasing the economy is going to help, because if about 80% of the South African working force is infected in the road and then they end up being on quarantine, the economy is going to come to a standstill. So we think that the government shouldn't capitulate and maybe fear the threat of a total shutdown by the taxi industry. They should stand firm and they should enforce the rule.
But what happens if the taxi industry goes ahead with the threats that they made, Mr. Shingange? Because I guess there's no overstating the power that the taxi industry wields over many of the people who, I guess, need to go to work now and again. What's the plan if they do go ahead with this threat to shut down, especially considering how this might have a bearing on workers' job security?
Look, we can't have a state that is run through threats, being threatened about the shutting down. But anyway, they are not the only ones that reserve the right to shut down. I mean, if workers think that they are being led into a slaughterhouse through these taxis because they have no choice, if all the other sectors are opened and the workers are required to go to work and the only mode of transport they're supposed to use is taxi industry, and that taxi industry is said to be loading 100%, they may have to be forced to do so, and that, thereby risking their life. So I'm saying that the taxi industry people are not the only one who have got the capacity to have a total shutdown. That's why we're at NEDLEC, that's why we're at negotiations, that's why we submitted the Section 77. In case we are not finding one another with government, of course, as workers, we also reserved our right to say what is the next course of action we can take.
Do you feel that taxi bosses are law unto themselves? I mean, we've heard this critique several times. Do you share that sentiment?
Nobody should be a law unto himself. Look, we think that the taxi industry for a very long time, they've not been regulated. In other words, the workers themselves that drive the taxis are actually vulnerable. At the beginning of this lockdown, we developed protocols that were supposed to help the workers themselves to be registered for injuries on duties. They are not benefited. In case they get affected by this coronavirus, their employers have no way to can protect them or even compensate them for the disease that they will have contracted on duty. Also, even if they are not registered in this taxi transport, to an extent that their employers are supposed to claim a UIF on their behalf. So these are the things that we are trying to correct. That's why we thought we have made progress at Netflix from the beginning of this thing. When we tried to bring every other sector of the economy in this country, even though we knew that the taxi drivers were not registered, but we were making progress in as far as them being allowed to benefit in case they lose the income, them being allowed to benefit in case they get injured on duty through this coronavirus. But all that thing is now thrown out of the window because of this 100% capacity loading by the government.
What do you say to people who say that this consultation comes a little too late? Taxi operators are already at 100% capacity. Workers have already been in those spaces. And a lot of time has lapsed since these regulations have been gazetted.
Actually, that's the reason why we're submitting Section 77. Because, like I said, at the beginning, we had been having discussions. We have been finding one another. By the way, we're not focusing only on the taxi industry. We were focusing on all the public transportations, including the interchanges, including the taxis and the buses and the trains. Now, with the fact that this announcement of the 100% capacity was announced without a consultation, is that which have taken us aback. At the other level 4, level 5, including when we went to level 3, when there was an issue of a 70% capacity moving from 50%. We were part of those discussions. Not that we agree with everything, but I think we understood where the government was coming from. To this one, in our view, is very surprising because even the minister yesterday will have considered that actually even the expert advices that they are getting from the scientists, they are telling them if it was according to them, taxi industry should be carrying actually 40%, because there's no telling how you're going to be in a taxi in a rural area and you are able to close the window, to open the window for about 100 kilometers, because these taxis are said to be a long distance. It's about 200 kilometers. In other words, anything that is 190 kilometers is regarded as a local and short distance. Who is going to open a window for 190 kilometers on the road in this winter? So our views that this thing was not well considered, and it was not consulted. Hence, we are saying to the minister and the president, come to NEDLEC, let's have a discussion through this Section 77.
Right. And if this process fails, if you're quoted correctly in some reports, you've threatened to go on strike. How is this a progressive move forward, considering that taxi bosses can retaliate with the same move, and we know that when the elephants fight, it's the grass that suffers the most, it's the people on the ground?
It's not a progressive move at all, as you said, but it's also not a progressive move to plunge the majority of the working class into a slaughterhouse. It's not a progressive move that workers can watch their life like that and being pushed into genocide. But we want to reiterate, we're not going for a strike. We have not submitted a notice for a strike. We have submitted a submission in order for us to have a discussion. So we still hope that we're going to find one another. We're still going to have a discussion, including the taxi industry themselves. But we don't have to go on and to lock hide with the taxi industry. We have no issues with the taxi industry. We are talking to our government here. We are talking to the state. We're talking to the president. We're talking to the minister of transport. We can't find a situation where we're lock ahead with the taxi industry. Those are the workers that also need this protection themselves. They have been coming to us since this lockdown started and wanting protection from their bosses. That's what we are trying to do here. And we're not going to go out there and say, well, we want to take the taxis out of the road. We have a right to stay away and not put their taxis, and because we will be protected, because that will be our right that will have applied through Section 77, and therefore it will be protected action. So we don't have to come head to head with the taxi industries.
All right, let's leave it there. Mike Shingange is the first Deputy President of Labour Federation, COSATU. Mike, thanks very much for your time.